Welcome, fellow cultivators, to the channel. Today I wanted to talk about OBEs and NDEs. I feel like it's been on my mind for quite a while to try to come up with an explanation that ties together the different, thought schools about these things. So my idea is we can maybe collect our information, our own experiences. You can write them in the comments, and so we can explore this phenomenon or this natural occurrence further. So my thoughts on this is our consciousness, which it's already the first hurdle we have to take here, is we have to define these words really, or at least we have to know what we're talking about. So what I'm talking about with consciousness is not only pure awareness, which is void of every kind of thought or feeling or whatever. It's basically a kind of state of being that similar to this state that you're in right now. Doesn't matter if it's like, if you're talking about brainwaves, if it's like alpha or beta state, even theta to a degree, is actually the same thing. I'd say there's awareness plus something, an interpretation of reality, thoughts, emotions, feelings, sensory input, visions, maybe intentions, and also motivation. So I'll stick with consciousness for now, because I think it's a good indicator that it is not pure awareness. But also you can determine by that very state where you are in space-time or time-space. So essentially, if something's going on, if something feels familiar, then this reality, but maybe, some negative things or, bad things, inconvenient stuff is missing, and the positive things are amplified, then you're most likely on a higher plane of existence, which could also be defined as a filter for all of creation or reality that filters out certain aspects of it so that you have a clear, concise frame in which your consciousness is perceiving things, and the things you perceive is based on that frame. So in a sense, an out-of-body experience is kind of the same existence as we have here, but it comes with a different kind of filter. And that filter is different than the one we have here incarnated in, or our consciousness perceiving through or being anchored to the physical body, or the physical body complex, the physical body system, which involves energy bodies as well, but very earthbound stuff. So you can't really move freely outside the boundaries of, let's say, lower level earth samsara experiences or rule set. So in order to experience something else, your consciousness must be focused through a different filter or perceived through a different filter must be anchored to a different, I don't know if it's a location per se, but it's a different reference point for sure. So in order to achieve that, you can simply leave this physical body and then experience from a new reference point a different part of the reality as a whole. And so this could mean, depending on the reference point, different kind of experiences. So very closely to our reality, our five senses reality, is like a typical near-death experience. So someone might be hovering above their physical body, which is operated on by a surgeon after maybe a car crash or something. And they're in a state of, fatal danger, or actually, dead and in the resuscitation process, or just under heavy anesthesia and the body suffering from severe damage, severe trauma. Either it's time-wise, either it is chronologically perfectly aligned with the actual time that the heart stopped beating or they're pronounced dead in a medical sense, but they're within the frame of being able to be, resuscitated, or it's kind of vague and or not aligned with that. Then this should not be an argument or a proof of anything like that, of any story, because I think the proof is already there. But it's sometimes funny how it's not really necessary to be, in a state of, physical death in order to have this change of consciousness or change of perception, this movement, this perceived movement of consciousness. So they might be perceiving the whole surgical procedure and can retell what happened there. Who's talking to who, what kind of techniques they use, whatever. So there was this AWARE study that kind of wanted to semi-prove these kind of experiences, but it's it was kind of flawed. But I still think that if you've done it in a slightly different way, it would have proven more. But nonetheless, the cases are interesting. So this would be the more earthbound, more earth-near experience. And with earth, I mean in this case the lower incarnation, day-to-day life experience. So from that point, several things can happen. Either someone can appear, another ethereal or astral being, whatever term people have for them, essentially a different kind of being, a consciousness, maybe with a body or some light effect around it, a center of consciousness that has something distinguishable about them. So let's call it a being that is also not incarnated, that can move freely. Sometimes there's only maybe an impression of such a being, but sometimes there is visuals and auditory perception, or in most cases it would be kind of telepathic mind impressions. This would be the communication that many of these beings, or maybe even in these realms in general, is preferred. I mean, telepathy would be preferred, of course, if the consciousness, if the receiver can handle it. Otherwise, maybe they even speak or give just a feeling, transport an urge to do something. But also, it could be, so this would be you're perceiving something more than you would perceive in everyday life, except for, people that can, have a broader sense of reality because they have extrasensory perceptions. The next step would be to go to a place that is not here, that you cannot see from day-to-day experience. So being transported through a tunnel, or depending on the culture, you could be a river or a wheel. So depending on the worldview of the individual or the culture, so the collective belief system of the culture would be determining the kind of place you go to, or places you can go to, and how you get there, and also what you would experience there. So, but I think most prominently it's about the individual's state of being, state of thought, state of emotion. You can influence that immediately and change circumstances. And it becomes more difficult if someone's not aware that this can be done, or not even really aware that they're, dead or in a different plane of existence. So that's probably why some can do that, and some others are, forced almost through different kinds of experiences. So that's kind of the difference. And with an out-of-body experience, you can go to these places, to these higher level places immediately and consciously when you're trained or when you're more experienced. So that's what I've gathered. And maybe we continue this conversation another time. I'm curious what you have to say. What's your input on this matter? Have you ever had experiences like that? Let me know, and hopefully we see each other next time. Thank you very much for watching, and be well.